Welcome to the 40th episode of Tokenizing Everything, our weekly interview series with thought leaders in the blockchain industry. Today's guest is Nova Lorraine, award-winning fashion designer, author, and founder at Raine magazine. Before we begin, I have to mention that all opinions are solely personal and do not reflect the opinion of Amazing Blocks or any other involved party. So it's a pleasure to have you here today, Nova. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, cool. I'm really excited for today's conversation, right? A lot of interesting topics to cover. The metaverse, fashion, NFTs. So there's quite some interesting stuff. But before we dive into this, could you just give a brief introduction of yourself and kind of how you engaged or started engaging with the crypto industry?
Oh, yeah, great. Well, as you mentioned in your intro, I'm the founder of Raine magazine. I launched Raine in 2007 and was one of the first, believe it or not, in introducing a digital flip book online as a magazine. And so we launched as an ebook initially, and it was very, very much non-traditional. But before Rain, I had been designing and had gotten the award Best Hot Couture Designer of the Year, had gotten nominations as a Rising Star by the Fashion Group International, and was able to get in publications like Italian Vogue, Essence Magazine, and get on shows like The View and in movies. And it was an amazing ride. But with those equal highs came equal lows, which inspired me to launch Rain magazine to provide a platform for others that are on their journey, creative journey, fashion journey of entrepreneurship. And right now, that has expanded into podcasting with the Pink Kangaroo Network and a new book called Unleash Your Supernova, which is also an award nominated podcast. And I'm now an award nominated host, People's Choice Awards. And so I love guest lecturing, I love sharing knowledge. My introduction into crypto actually was in 2012. A contact I had through Rain had given me an inside scoop on Bitcoin. and I was extremely intrigued, but didn't pull the investment trigger at that moment. I started investing and really diving into crypto around 2017 and more aggressively in 2020. And so, but my interest in blockchain has been for a few years and wanting to bring fashion to blockchain and blockchain to fashion as a tech nerd has been for a while. And so I'm excited to be deeply involved in the metaverse space now.
Cool. Yeah, very exciting resume. And I think, it's quite right at the perfect time for this, convergence. And yeah, in regards to, your background in the fashion industry, could you also shed some light quickly on this? How did you become interested in the beginning? How did your career start and what was your path on that journey?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a straightforward path. I actually started in academia and medicine. I was pursuing my PhD in clinical psychology and had an epiphany that how I was going to help people through my love of fashion and creativity. So I did a pivot, a 360 pivot. I finished up the program early with my master's, went on to study at FIT in New York, the Fashion Institute of Technology, got my design degree, spent about 3 years in corporate and also studying entrepreneurship and marketing before taking the plunge into entrepreneurship. And then I launched my brand as a couture made to order brand. Again, a very novel concept at the time, especially as a new designer. And that journey, again, was amazing. But I was just sort of learning as I was going along as it related to the business side of fashion. And with Rain, I felt that it was so important to have those resources and contacts and networks that designers and creatives could be exposed to help them along their journey, because those were things that I didn't have when I was pursuing my career as a fashion designer. But yeah, it definitely wasn't linear. I started off in, like I said, the clinical psychology space and then moved into fashion, but it was a perfect alignment because fashion has so much to do with how we feel and how we want to feel and how we communicate to the world or want to be perceived by the world. So it was actually a really great mesh of two industries.
Yeah, awesome. I think, and now the future of fashion, right, is at least to a certain extent in the metaverse and the crypto space. So it's definitely a perfect evolution on from that perspective. Though apart from, blockchain in general as an application layer for the future of fashion, generally, what influence do you believe will or does technology have on the fashion industry in general? And do you also think, for instance, that technologies apart from blockchain, such as AI, will have an impact on the overall industry as well? I'm thinking of potentially an AI that designs certain, clothing and these type of things. So what is your take on that?
No, excellent questions. Well, in terms of technology, we've seen the introduction of tech in production that's made some huge strides as it relates to 3D printing. Iris Van Harpen is a well-known designer, couture designer that uses 3D printing for all of her garments. Now, most of her garments that you'll see online looks as if you attended a gala in space, which is kind of cool. But to
Mm,
know that was done through 3D printing is pretty incredible. And I know some really great designers that have taken that, and have expanded upon that and exclusively use it for their collections. As it relates to AI, we have a lot of software companies coming into the game, helping e-commerce brands offer more
mm,
value to their customers and helping them decrease returns, helping customers find clothes that are better suited for their body type, that are suited for their hair color, skin color, face shape, and so the vendor wins, the store wins, and the customer wins, which is really great.
mm,
VR and AR, coming into the space and really taking that shopping experience to the next level, taking fashion and fashion design to the next level, where you see animated clothing coming down the runway with no models in the clothing, where you also see animated models that look
mm,
really real, kind of scarily real. And so I think technology has made some huge strides, for the innovators and risk takers within the industry. I see what's exciting is that some of the bigger brands are now jumping into the metaverse space and the gaming space, which will be exciting. And I see that only expanding,
mm,
with the push on sustainability. We see digital fashion really expanding in the lay consumer space, where if you couldn't afford that $500 dress or that $5,000
mm,
dress, you're buying it for $15 or $50 on an app, so, and, for our Gen Zers, they're very conscious. And so it
mm,
gives them an opportunity to play, with fashion without harming the environment. So again, I see that as a space that's going to continue to grow, where you can experiment, put clothes on your avatar, create new avatars, and really play with fashion at a less expensive cost. And so that's where I see a technology continuing to move the industry forward.
yeah, definitely. I think right here in the age of technology, so even art is something that will be affected or is already being affected by it quite increasingly. So in regards to the, generally the fashion industry as a whole and blockchain application, right? Obviously, there's certain obstacles that first need to be surmounted. There may be some, friction infused legacy structures, like in most industries that kind of first needs to be jettisoned to a certain degree, right? And made ready and educated for blockchain application. So what would you describe is the, current status quo in the fashion industry, and what needs to happen to it really, like from a global perspective, is ready for, being disrupted by blockchain?
Yeah, well, I would say I'm going to touch on sustainability as my first point. And I feel that blockchain really introduces that component of traceability, where the consumer as well as the designer can better track where their resources are coming from. And are the vendors and partners they're using, are they providing ethical labor practices? And the benefit of that is you can provide that information to your consumer, because I believe as consumers, we want to know, we care, we are more educated. And we want to know that we're supporting a brand or wearing articles of clothing that didn't come from children in a sweatshop, that are not made from chemicals that are toxic to the earth and the soil. And so I believe blockchain with its traceability component is going to be integral there. It also allows for the artists and artisans and craftsmen to be recognized. These individuals and startups that may not have a means to pay really top talent as they're getting started, they can use blockchain technology and offer awareness, and to the artists and craftsmen that are participating in the project. But then as the company grows later on, they can be paid through the dividends and the revenue and profit sharing of that company, because it's more easily traced in terms of who participated, what they did, at what point in the timeline did they come in to the process. And so I think it opens up a lot of doors there. I also think blockchain and technology in general has right now a huge gap as it relates to diversity. We know technology in general is skewed where there's fewer women, let alone individuals of color. And so I think it's our duty to be intentional about, reaching out to these individuals and communities that are not as represented, so they can have a stake in this new territory where their voices can be seen and heard. And it only makes a better experience, and it only makes better technology for everyone, where you have a diverse set of minds and individuals coming together. And so I believe that is an issue right now. I think it's also the status quo and in sustainability and fashion. And this is an opportunity for us to disrupt that, to close that gap. And I think it's going to happen at all levels, from your elementary schools all the way through to your current professionals, educating these teachers, educating the decision makers and why this is important, and how, and giving them options and opportunities in implementing it, in sharing the information and knowledge to individuals so they can be excited and interested. There is a huge language gap, right? Like when we're talking, we're speaking on words and terminology that most people aren't using in their day-to-day, conversation. So what do we do about that? How do we bring it down to a third grade level where it's not intimidating? Because once you understand the concept, and this was from a recent conversation we had, like the internet, for example, you say, oh, I can search for content. I can, find things. It's super simple, but if you actually broke down how it works on the back end, forget about it. You're going to lose 98% of the people that are using the internet. And I think the same goes with blockchain. Bring it down to a level where most people can understand it and most people can get excited about it. So I think the language and the communication gap is an issue. That's also a status quo, and I think that needs to change. And bringing individuals that understand both sides, that can communicate with the artists, communicate with the late consumers, but also understand the technology to help bridge that communication gap, I think is going to be critical.
Yeah, I think brought it right to the point. The education is really the most crucial aspect, right, in regard to fostering it and still also making it at the same time intuitive for people to just seamlessly adopt to. And obviously also most people still first, when we speak about the metaverse, right, need to at least enter the metaverse to a certain degree. So also from that perspective, I think also the metaverse community itself also has some obstacles still to surmount before the mainstream adoption of that perspective is happening. But yeah, I definitely believe we are on the right path on that respect. So in regards to Raine, I know we spoke already quickly about it, what Raine is, but just from your own words again, could you give us an overview, a bit more maybe focus on the Raine community itself and what Raine is, and also after that as kind of a follow-up, what the future of the Raine ecosystem could look like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to start with why Raine, why I even launched
Mm.
Raine. I launched it as a passion project. I had just opened a retail store. I'd moved my showroom from New York City to Westchester, New York at the time, and had my fourth child. So I really had no business starting any new adventure. Okay. But just through my experiences on this roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship, I felt that there was a need to have a platform, especially a media platform, that truly was committed to the creative entrepreneur and was founded by someone who was walking the walk, still walking the walk, talking the talk, that understood, the perspective of that fashion designer, of that writer, of that actor, of that musician, of the photographer. And, I'm a creative, I'm an artist, I perform, I act, I write, and so as an artist and a creator, not just as a designer, I believe that there were a lot of gaps in as it related to just launching and growing your business. And so Raine was started from that perspective. We cover fashion, culture, and technology. And our target from the very beginning was that rising designer, that rising artist, that rising musician, the rising food stylist, you know? And so it was who's rising, who's emerging, who's going to be that next big name. Let's put our Sherlock Holmes magnifying glass on and find those gems. And that's what we did. And we felt that these talented individuals existed all around the world. And so super excited to have, come across and help expose and bring to our readers Mark Cuban, Priyanka Chopra, Kendall Jenner, Damon John, and many others that were starting new enterprises, were growing in their space, And so Raine is about that creative entrepreneur in fashion, culture, and technology that's on the rise, that is showing signs of greatness and who could, in the very near future, be that next big name, that next big brand. And so that's the community. It's of those creatives. It's those that are also passionate about making an impact within their communities as well. They're doing this for the love of the craft. And, typically the profits came second, but with all of us, we want a way to sustain ourselves. And how amazing would it be to be able to sustain ourselves successfully doing the very things we love that inspire others? And so Raine is about growth, inspiration, empowerment. Let it rain. Just
Yeah.
like the word, let it rain. So it's creating that community, that network, that platform that inspires, empowers, and encourages the creative entrepreneur.
Yeah, very exciting. It's also especially the guests that you had already and have covered within the Rain ecosystem. So very excited. And in regards to the metaverse and the NFT space, I mean, obviously from the Rain perspective and generally, do you have any future, let's say, plans in regards to exploring this space, this field, or what is your take on that? Will Rain kind of have like an ecosystem to a certain extent that will also focus on other parts such as the crypto space and the metaverse, or is that something where you say, okay, first I have to take a closer look at it?
Oh, no, no, no. I'm in. I'm all in. And it's one of my newest babies, I'm going to say, right now, is the Metaverse project that incorporates the Rain ecosystem that will bring in fashion, of course. Fashion will be a major component. When I launched Rain, although I was targeting entrepreneurs and creative entrepreneurs, I saw fashion as that tool to draw people in. It is a powerful way we communicate. We all wear clothes wherever we are. And so why not use this very powerful communication tool that I love, to draw people in. And then once they're in, they're able to see all the wonderful knowledge that's within the book. Well, the same is going to be with the metaverse. We're going to use fashion to draw people in. And once they're in, they're going to see all these amazing experiences and opportunities that are going to exist for them in the metaverse. And so with Rain, the Rain ecosystem, it will include all of what you had mentioned. It will include, of course, blockchain and tokenization and NFTs and experiences with independent films and music and fashion and events. You're going to be able to shop and engage and network within the universe. All the things that we touched on as a brand in the real world. So it's a matter of blending the two together and introducing Rain to a whole new audience, but then introducing a new experience to our existing and growing community.
Okay, very exciting. This is definitely something that will be very interesting to see how, this community of artists, of, visionaries, and generally also people from the fashion industry all come together to build like an ecosystem of value right within the metaverse and the decentralized fashion. So yeah, very, very amazing stuff. And I advise every listener to definitely focus or have a close eye on that in the future. So at this stage, I would like to pose the Being Crypto special question. So the community has a weekly question for my guest, and this week's question for you is: what or where do you see the biggest problems blockchain could solve in the fashion industry? I know we kind of already touched on it a bit, but potentially we can dive a bit deeper into this.
Well, my hope, and I'm a glass half full person, I always think on
Mm,
what's the most positive outcome of every situation, is that accessibility is where I
mm,
see blockchain, solving the problem, and financial sustainability. If we aren't
mm,
able to sustain ourselves, it's hard for us to be creative. It's hard for us to be happy. It's hard for us to be caring, when we ourselves are falling apart. And it comes down to just the most basic things that we need to be paying attention to. And why are these barriers there? What is the problem, and how
mm,
can we assist? And I think that blockchain is going to allow for more opportunities for designers,
mm,
manufacturers, textile producers, all of these wonderful individuals, craftsmen, artisans, all these wonderful individuals that truly, truly love this industry to have more access, and then also to be seen for those that want more visibility. And I think it's also going to help them do what they intuitively want to do, which is providing
mm,
high quality product that benefits everyone, including the environment. And so these are the things that I feel is going to be addressed through
mm.
blockchain.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think the accessibility is really a great point, right? Because especially when it comes to high quality and good fashion, also from that perspective, it's not really accessible for a lot of people, right? So, and that's definitely something that here, where also first of all, the digital art or fashion industry could have kind of at least yeah, to a certain extent allow a bit more flexibility on that side. And generally, I think also, especially when we converge the digital fashion industry with the real world fashion industry, so to say, then it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out in the future and the respective impact. But generally, in regards to tokenization itself, right, as the title of this podcast is tokenizing everything, potentially apart from the applying tokenization within the fashion industry, what would you say is your favorite tokenization use case?
Ooh, I would say combining the utility token, with the security token, again coming from a financial sustainable perspective. So as an entrepreneur, as a designer, if I can create a garment that I can sell to a neighbor, and then that neighbor can resell and resell and resell that garment, everyone wins. So as the creator, I was able to make a return on my investment. And then based on the agreement with the token, I can continue to make residuals off that one design without having to produce thousands and thousands of units that may or may not be reused over and over. Well, this design is also being recycled and reused, and each person that's passing it on is earning revenue, and the original creator is earning revenue. I think that would be an amazing use of tokenization.
Okay, yeah, I think that definitely is that kind of diverse approach from the two different perspectives, right? That's definitely something to look at in the future. And generally, in regards to the respective, going back to applying tokenization within the fashion industry and the metaverse, do you think that when we look at tokenizing fashion in general, right? That it will mainly be fashion that is, let's say, basically, well-known fashion items, special rare items, or do you also see it going into a direction where it's just like, let's say, yeah, today's socks that I'm wearing, or these type of things, right? Where it's really something that has a broader scope of application, where millions of different items will be somehow tokenized and have kind of a digital identity as well as a physical one. Or what is your take on that for the future?
Yeah, excellent question. I would start with the more rare items. So within the fashion space, it's couture, haute couture, and this these garments are so meticulously made, and typically hundreds of hours gets poured into each and every garment. So they are art. They're forms of art, and they are rare. and they are customized and one of a kind. And so I would see the, tokens being able to be applied to these rare items that are, again, not as accessible to everyone else, to a lot of people, right? Just like a Picasso, an original Picasso painting. But if I have an appreciation for art and my medium is couture, then I can own a part of that garment. And let's say that garment sits in a museum, or let's say it even and sits with its original owner. But just knowing that, as someone who's an enthusiast of Chanel, can own partially own $100,000 Chanel gown that's only going to continue to appreciate over time. And if that's the art form that I choose to invest in or choose to own for my own appreciation, then that gives me that option through tokenization. So I would say I feel that we'll start with more rare items. May it be paintings, which we've seen, of course, with NFTs, a lot of art, your digital art and some physical art, antiques, real estate, your higher priced items. And I think the same would be within fashion. I think it would be highly successful, if couture across the board was also tokenized. Like once
Yeah,
you
that's
wear a couture garment, you're not going to want to go back. So maybe as a token owner, you can wear a couture garment for the day, just like, how special your wedding dress is, for the day. It's like, oh, wow. But, I think we've seen models, without tokens like Rent the Runway be very successful for a reason. And I think that if we apply the technology component to it, I think you'll also see that same success as it relates to couture.
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely agree on that respect. And in regards to, it's when it comes to really high quality fashion in that sense, right? I can imagine that just like people have sometimes a personal relationship with a t-shirt or a pair of sneakers and these type of things. Do you think that, okay, sure, there can be, forms of digitized art or generally fashion, right, which exists in the real world as well as in digital identity, but there could also be only, metaverse based fashion, right, that's only existing in the metaverse. But do you think that this will have a similar impact from kind of the personal value that this item will have to this respective person, potentially being applied to their respective avatar and these type of things? Or do you think that this will be kind of an issue that needs to be addressed because people cannot feel it in that sense, like in the real world?
Well, I think there's two perspectives. We know that fashion is very tangible, and but we've seen the success of e-commerce where we're purchasing items without touching it, and we've seen the success of gaming and buying skins where we're purchasing digital, looks for our digital avatars. One of the things that I get frustrated about when I'm in the gaming space is that I'm like, oh, who designed this outfit? And where are my options? And no, that hat is super ugly. Like, I'm like, I'm like, who is the designer? Why aren't there more fashion designers in this space where it's a more enjoyable experience for those that care about it? And I actually care about, what I'm wearing, even if it's in the digital space. So I think it's just an area that has been overlooked. And I think there would be value because you are identifying momentarily with that avatar. And so the color of that avatar, the shape of that avatar, the height of the avatar, is it human? Is it non-human? I mean, these are some choices that are there, and you're selecting them for personal reasons. So why wouldn't you select what you're wearing for personal reasons and have a personal attachment to that as well? I do believe the value of it is different because obviously in the physical world, we're going out and interfacing in real time, and judgments are being made in real time based on what we're wearing. And there are expectations in terms of the venues you're going to and events you're going to and what you have on. So you don't necessarily have that aspect yet in the gaming world, but maybe it will enter in the gaming space. If you're going to a gala, let's say in the metaverse, what are you going to wear? And so you're going to really truly care about those items that you're selecting for your avatar. It's just not as it's not as widespread right now. Fashion is not something that is or has been a priority in the past across the board in terms of metaverse. And I think that's where the accessibility and the diversity comes in, and just having different perspectives and different interests. So you would have more, elements and types of experiences for those that are looking for it. And so some are looking to come in for the chase, or the race, or the war, but some are coming in, looking for the fashion. There may be, if that opportunity was there, then you would attract more consumers that would have that experience as well. And we have seen games and fashion games, in the metaverse. So that's not anything new, and they have been successful, and a lot of them are still around. But I think we could also take it to the next level.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially when we combine it with, virtual reality in that sense, where you have 3D based environments and, you could actually try the
Yeah.
digital fashion on yourself, and this other aspect, it definitely will create a much more intuitive and exciting user interface, right? For the respective projects in that sense. So it's been a great conversation so far. My listeners already know my last question. It's basically, where do you see blockchain in 10 years from now? I know it's quite difficult to give a definite answer, right? But it's always interesting to get the different perspectives of my guests to this question.
Well, okay, I'm going to try to look at the glass half full here because it could have a very
Mm,
negative impact as well. I mean, I do, when we talked about traceability as relates to fabric and fashion,
mm,
we're seeing it enter obviously the financial system, right? And with cryptocurrency and the traceability of transactions. So I think that's going to increase in our day to day lives with blockchain being implemented more greatly in our financial transactions, in our financial worlds. So 10 years, whew, things are happening so fast. I mean, who knows? We might be at the Jetsons era. We might be all flying our own cars in 10 years. But I see blockchain being implemented in almost every major industry where traceability and sustainability are more a factor.
mm.
Quality, ethical practices, and fair labor practices are more highly implemented because you can compare under the microscope. You can peel back the layers. So again, from a more positive perspective, I'm going to focus on that. Of course, we have, rumors as it relates to being able to trace everything we do. And everyone has access to everywhere we went and everything we do and everything we bought. But again, I see it as helping more on the, production side of things where it relates to manufacturing, ethical practices, governance within organizations, financial sustainability. These are more diversity across industries. So that's where I see blockchain making the biggest impact in 10 years.
Okay, thanks so much, Noah, for this amazing, final take on the future of blockchain. I also think that, if applied correctly, right, blockchain can actually also foster that degree of privacy if you leverage technologies such as zero knowledge proof and all these aspects to interact, within this entire metaverse industry, but still, stay compliant with certain aspects, but also on the other hand, still have a certain degree of anonymity on that respect. So yeah, it's going to be exciting to see and to also follow your future journey within this industry. So thanks so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I could have easily stayed another 30 minutes.
Yes, definitely. I'm sure we will have another one of these episodes in the future. So really looking forward to that. Thanks so much, Nova, for today.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. All right, take care. Until next time.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye
And
bye.
to our listeners, as always, thanks so much for listening, or whether you watch it on YouTube or you're part of the recording. As always, if you have any questions for Nova, right, I'm sure you can reach out to her on her social media channels. And if you have any questions, blockchain or tokenization related in general, and of course, you can reach out to me. So thanks so much, guys, and see you soon. Bye bye.